Om Vishnupadaya Krishnaprasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishisha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, celebrating Srila Prabhupada's preeminent position in ISKCON, as well as every follower's foundational relationship with him. One challenge of me presenting without a live audience is that I have to keep talking all the time. My voice is feeling a little frayed today, so if I slow down, or if there's gaps, just know that I'm catching my breath and I'm trying to continue. Lesson 4, his mission's roots. Now we're entering into the Abhideya phase of the seminar. Sambandha was deepening our relationship with Prabhupada. Abhideya, based on that deepened relationship, we deepen our commitment to his mission. In the Sambandha lessons, we deepen our understanding of Srila Prabhupada's relationship with us as our founder Acharya. Now in the Abhideya phase of our journey, we will explore how each of us can develop that relationship by deepening our commitment to Prabhupada's mission. In this lesson, we'll trace his mission's origin and development in India before it manifested in the West. And there is that famous image of Srila Prabhupada sitting in his Radha Damodar rooms in 1972, captured by Vishaka Devidasi, just before Prabhupada is about to honor prasad, cooked and offered by the late great Jamuna Devidasi. That was taken in 72, but we can easily imagine from the image that it wasn't a whole lot different for Prabhupada in 62, when he was all alone 10 years earlier, meditating on what his spiritual master had asked him to do. 40 years before that, 62 minus 40 is 22, and so we'll go right to that seminal meeting between Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Prabhupada. There we go. His mission seed. So you may remember, Narendranath Mulak, Prabhupada told us, dragged him, his friend Naren dragged him to this Altadunga rooftop in Calcutta. Prabhupada said he didn't want to go. He'd had his fill of so-called sadhus. He was hard-pressed if asked if he'd ever met a real one, apart from his father, pure devotee of Krishna. So Prabhupada didn't want to go. But because he was the leader of his friends who had all met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, were withholding their opinion of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta until Abhay gave his verdict. So there's the slide, quote, while the two young men were still rising and preparing to sit, before any preliminary formalities of conversation had begun, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta immediately said to them, "You are educated young men. Why don't you preach Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message throughout the whole world?" This was astonishing, even before they'd risen from obeisances. This is Bhaktisiddhanta's way. He was canvassing amongst the educated, especially the educated Indian youth, to help his mission. So much so that the Indian revolutionary Subhas Chandra Bose, he went to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta complaining that, we're trying to get independence from the British, and you're capturing all these men. So Prabhupada told us, Guru Maharaj avoided Subhash Bose by saying, "Oh, these men that I'm attracting, they're skinny. They're skinny Brahmins. You need strong Kshatriya types, so don't place your glance upon my men. You just go out and recruit the kind of men you need." And that's why Prabhupada said Bhaktisiddhanta avoided. So Prabhupada would tell us that he was Gandhi's devotee at the time. He was a Gandhian. So he felt obliged. Number one, he felt obliged to challenge the sadhu to see if he was really a sadhu. And number two, he felt that he wanted to present his Gandhi line. And so for the first time, he received a good response. And the line was, of course, you know, we're a captive nation. Who's going to listen to us? We need to get free from the British. Who will listen to Lord Chaitanya's message? First, we have to become our own, in charge of our own destiny here. Then people will listen to us. We'll be a free nation. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, of course, replied, oh, no, Krishna consciousness, it's too important, it's too urgent to wait for a change of politics. It's the urgent need of every living being. So right on the spot, Prabhupada had a change of heart. He had never heard such powerful preaching. And so his allegiance, Prabhupada's allegiance, went right from Gandhi to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in a heartbeat. And that's why Prabhupada told us later, quote, I accepted him as my spiritual master immediately, not officially, but in my heart. Okay. So there was a tangible change of heart. Of course, Srila Prabhupada was already a family man. He was married in 1918. He had a son, his first child, in 1921. He couldn't just up and join the mission, as Prabhupada told us. It would have been injustice. So his strategy was, because by his destiny he was supposed to be very wealthy, to make a lot of money in business, and then later on when the children are grown and the business, he's got an accumulated sum from the business, he'll do the mission. That was his strategy. Of course, Krishna had other plans. So in 1923, the next year, Prabhupada moved his family from Calcutta, where Prabhupada had been the best salesman for Dr. Kartik Chandra Bose, who was the family doctor. Dr. Bose had his own pharmaceutical concern. And after Prabhupada boycotted the British-made diploma from his school days, because Prabhupada was a Gandhian, they were boycotting anything British, British clothes, British diplomas, you name it. So he wasn't working. And so Kartik Bose said to Prabhupada's father, what's Abai doing? Oh, he's not doing much. You know, he refused his diploma. So, well, he should come work for me. He's a very intelligent boy. So Prabhupada got a job, and he became an office manager in Bose's laboratories. And then the next year, he was doing so well, he decided, well, I'm going to have my own business, Prabhupada decided. So he moved his whole family to Prayag, Allahabad, where they have Kumbh Mela every year. But the seed of that mission that had been planted when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, you're educated young men, why don't you preach Lord Chaitanya's message all over the world? That was planted. Now there's the next slide. Srila Prabhupada, I was from a Vaishnava family, so I could appreciate what he was preaching. Of course, he was speaking to everyone, but he found something in me. I was so much struck with wonder. I could understand. Here is the proper person who can give a real religious idea. So Prabhupada had been profoundly touched. So when he moved to Allahabad, that seed of the mission moved with him. He was reading Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's books. He was always thinking about how he had met such a nice, saintly person. So in 1928, Prabhupada told us when some Gaudiya Math sannyasis walked into his pharmacy in Allahabad, Prabhupada immediately recognized them and thought, oh, I know these people, yes. Such a nice, saintly person, their spiritual master is. I must do some service for them. So they said, Abai Babu, we have heard you're a very nice Vaishnav and businessman, so please help us open a branch of the Gaudiya Math in Allahabad. So Prabhupada did. It didn't happen right away. It happened over a few years. But Prabhupada, with his business contacts and his desire to help the mission, helped manifest a center in Allahabad a few years later. And it was 1932 when Prabhupada again met the Gaudiya Math people. This time he must have been more involved, Prabhupada, because he met them on Parikrama, on Braj Mandal Parikrama, which is a very intense experience. And this year there was hundreds and hundreds. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta made it a big preaching event, a big itinerary, big Pandal programs. It was the Gaudiya Math, making its mark, making its statement for Lord Chaitanya. So in a town called Kosi, K-O-S-I, Prabhupada caught up with the pilgrims. He snuck away from his heavy business schedule for a couple of days. And Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj announced to the yatris that tonight Guru Maharaj says will be his last night with the party. So he's giving us a choice. We can either stay and listen to him speak, or we can go to a nearby temple and see this Sheshashayi Vishnu, one of these spectacular reclining Vishnu deities. You see a lot of them in South India. I got to see them when I went down to Kerala and Tamil Nadu last year. And big, huge reclining deities. So, actually it was just this year. Yeah, it was in January. So Prabhupada said most of the people, they chose to go see the Vishnu deity, the big spectacle, the big darshan. And only a handful stayed back and heard Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta noticed that. And that's why the next year, in 1933, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta came to Allahabad, and Prabhupada was recommended for initiation, I'll just read from the Lilamrita here. With folded palms, Abhay looked up humbly at his spiritual master. He and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta were now face to face, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta recognized him and was visibly pleased to see him. He already knew him. Yes, he said, exchanging looks with Abhay, he likes to hear. He does not go away. I have marked him. I will accept him as my disciple. So Prabhupada told us that was his qualification. He would understand or not understand, but he loved to hear Srila Bhaktisiddhanta speak in his very high philosophical, intellectual way. And so there is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta initiating Abhay Charande as Abhay Charanarvinda Das, servant of one who is fearless at the lotus feet of Krishna. Now, okay. That was 33. 1934, Srila Prabhupada, he was having a hard time with his business in Allahabad. In fact, so much so, and it was because he was extending a lot of credit to his customers and they weren't paying their bills. And so in turn, Prabhupada was not able to pay his bills to his supplier, who happened to be his old boss in Calcutta, Kartik Chandra Bose. So Dr. Bose was a family friend. He really respected, had a lot of faith in Abhay, as he knew him. But he couldn't just go on like this with unpaid bills. So he went to Allahabad and looked at Prabhupada's books and saw that it was just as Prabhupada was saying. Prabhupada just extended a lot of credit to his customers. They weren't paying their bills. So the only solution was Dr. Bose decided to take over Abhay's business and assume all the debt too, which got Prabhupada out from under the big debt load, but it also ended his income, and he didn't have his business anymore. So what Prabhupada did was, he and a brother, they decided to go to Bombay to try to drum up some pharmaceutical business in Bombay. Prabhupada knew how to manufacture and market pharmaceuticals. So that was the plan, that's what they do in Bombay. So he got there in 34, and he left his family, by the way, in Prayag, Allahabad, and just left a small pharmaceutical manufacturing works there, and just enough to generate enough income to maintain the family, while he and his brother were in Bombay seeking their fortune. And who should they meet in Bombay? Well, it's the same Gaudiya Math sannyasis that had asked his help in Allahabad in 1928. Now in 34, 6 years later, they meet them again. And this time it's, this time it's Bhakti Saranga Maharaj and Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj. And they asked him the same thing that had been asked in Allahabad. Oh, Abhay Babu, or Abhay Charanaravinda Prabhu, could you please help us open up a branch of the Gaudiya Math in Bombay, the gateway to India, the big. So Prabhupada, he was there to do business, but he was thrilled with the opportunity again to serve the mission. So we did. He was a very good organizer, and he became a favorite at the news center for his preaching and singing. And so in February 1935, on the occasion of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's Vyasa Puja day, Srila Prabhupada was selected to give the keynote address that evening honoring Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, which used to be published every year in the BBT Vyasa Puja book, an essay called The Universal Teacher. And it's Prabhupada's glorification of Bhaktisiddhanta, presenting Srila Bhaktisiddhanta not as a, quote, regular guru, as glorious as that is, but a Jagat Guru. He's capable of delivering everyone. So, and that was pleasing to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He later received a copy of that. But even more pleasing to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was the poem that his disciple had written about his mission. And so now we're going to hear Prabhupada recite and don't press the button yet, Ramananda. Recite the stanza that really struck Srila Bhaktisiddhanta the most. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, go.
Absolutely sentient thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity thou hast moved.
Okay, good. That was more or less synced. Very good. There it is. The poem, you may remember, began, adore, adore ye that holy day, blessed than heaven, sweeter than May, when he appeared at Puri, that holy place, my Lord and Master, his divine grace. So many beautiful poetic stanzas in English, which Srila Bhaktisiddhanta loved when his educated disciples were speaking and writing in English, which was the rising star of languages in the world, best for communicating Krishna consciousness everywhere. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was so moved by this that he would show it to guests. Just see how my disciple has captured my mission so nicely. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta told the editor of the Harmonist, instructed the editor of the Harmonist, whatever he writes, publish it. The Harmonist, of course, was the English language journal of the Gaudiya mission. Whatever he writes, publish it, which is a huge blessing. Huge blessing. Immediately, everyone recognizes, wow, Abhay Charanaravinda, he's a very confidential disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Guru Maharaj has given him carte blanche, just free hand, whatever his hand writes, publish it. So that's February 35, and then we go ahead to July 35. The image in the vase is from a little later in the year. That's the third and final blessing. And in July 35, the situation is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is in Bombay, as it was still known then. He wants to see how his new center is doing in Bombay. He's very pleased. He compliments Bhakti Saranga Maharaj, so this is very nice. There's lots of guests there, lots of preaching going on, lots of book distribution. Everything's very clean. The prasadam is nice. And so Srila Bhakti Siddhanta says that to the head of the mutt, Bhakti Saranga Maharaj. And Bhakti Saranga Maharaj says this. Bhakti Saranga Maharaj admitted that much of the work was due to Abhay Babu, who had collected funds and established the new center. Why should Abhay be living separately? Bhakti Saranga asked. He should be president of this Bombay center. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta's reply, it actually was a very prophetic reply. And here it is. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati replied, it is better that he is living outside your company. He will do, when the time comes, he will do everything himself. You don't have to recommend him. So he will do. Yeah. And so when Prabhupada heard what Guru Maharaj said, he was mystified. What does that mean? I will do everything myself? And so when Prabhupada was reflecting on this later, 1977 actually, there were two occasions, one in Vrindavan in 76 and one, I think, in Allahabad in 77. Yeah. Prabhupada said that this is his blessing, actually. He expected that I would do something. Otherwise, I have no qualification. But he was blessing me that I would do. So there's Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, knowing it's better that his disciple, Abhaya Charanaravinda, stays outside the company of the God Brothers, because he can see what's coming. And that's segueing right now. It's transitioning into the next blessing, which is Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, with a look of grave concern on his face, at Radhakund, on Braj Mandal Parikram, in 1935, November now. We're going to go to the third blessing, which is a very grave blessing. There's Prabhupada walking with his son, little Mathura Mohan, who was the darling of Gaudiya Math sannyasis at that time. Later on, it was another story. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was confiding in his confidential disciple, Abhaya Charanaravinda. Prabhupada told us that sometimes the God Brothers would criticize him for being too familiar with Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. They would say, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. The Prabhupada said, fool I may have been, but what could I do? Guru Maharaj, he always wanted to confide in me. I only met him 5 or 6 times, but every time I was with him, he would take me aside and he would speak so many confidential things. So the confidential thing here was that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta is really concerned about the way his mission's going. It was building in the 1920s. Its crowning glory happened in the early 30s with the publication of Sri Krishna Chaitanya by Professor Sanyal, sending those Gaudiya Math preachers to Europe. And now Srila Bhakti Siddhanta said, because we've built this marble palace, because one wealthy patron, one donor, built this big palace for us in Bagh Bazar Junction. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was lamenting. There used to be an Altadanga Junction, that rooftop where Prabhupada met Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. And just for a few hundred rupees a month, we were living very nicely, all expenses paid. And now that we have this marble palace, my leading men, my leading preachers, they're fighting over who will have the nicest facilities, who will get the best room, etc. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta is saying they're becoming just mad after the stones and bricks. Here's the blessing, which is also another kind of prophecy. Deeply concerned, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta said to Abhay, Godinjvalbe, there will be fire. One day there will be fire in the Calcutta Gaudiya Mutt. And that fire of party interests would spread and destroy. Yeah, the fire of dissension. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta could see it coming. And so he said to his disciple, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta then said directly to Abhay, Amaracha Chilakichu Bhai Korana. I had a desire to print some books. If you ever get money, print books. Standing by Radhakund and beholding his spiritual master, Abhay felt the words deeply enter his own life. If you ever get money, print books. Yeah. So that was 35 November. It's getting toward the end of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's manifest Leela. A year later, Srila Prabhupada is still in Bombay trying to, seek his fortune to build capital for the mission later on. Still not really happening. But he's done a lot already for the Gaudiya mission. He's helped launch 2 centers in Allahabad and Bombay. He's pleased his spiritual master like anything with his spoken and written word. But still he wants to do more. That sense of mission is really rising in him. So in December 36, Prabhupada told us an excerpt from a letter he wrote to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, who was in Puri at the time. I am a householder. Sometimes I give monetary help. Well, I cannot give you direct service. Is there any particular service I can do? And then Prabhupada told us quite a few excerpts from the reply, which was a little later in the month, 13th December. Here's the reply in excerpt form. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur replied, I am fully confident that you can explain in English our thoughts and arguments to the people. This will do much good to yourself as well as your audience. I have every hope that you can turn yourself into a very good English preacher if you serve the mission to inculcate the novel impression of Lord Chaitanya's teachings in the people. Now, so that, of course, sounded familiar to Prabhupada because Abhay at once recognized this to be the same instruction he had received at their first meeting in 1922. He took it as a confirmation. There was now no doubt as to the purpose of his life. So Prabhupada is so eager to serve the mission that he gets some special mercy there just before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta passes away, just 2 weeks later. He gets a resounding confirmation of what he'd heard the day he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Preach in English, preach in the West, you can do it, I have full faith in you. A little later on, Prabhupada said he was reading a Gita commentary, Bhagavad Gita commentary, by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in which Vishwanath says in his comments to those who are on this path are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. Vyavasayatmika buddhi. Vishwanath says in his comments to that verse that this means that one has to accept the order of the spiritual master as one's life and soul. So Prabhupada realized yet again, wow, I really have to do this. This is a direct order from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. I actually have to go to the West and preach. It hit him like a shot. Prabhupada said he was stunned. So that was 36. Of course, unfortunately, the Gaudiya mission fragmented due to fundamental disobedience to their founder Acharya's instructions to make a GBC, work cooperatively. There was an attempt, but it quickly collapsed under pressure from a few camps, 2 or 3 camps of people trying to replace the founder Acharya. And Prabhupada told us, because they were all unauthorized. No, he never said to do that. In the last 24 hours of his life, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta outlined his wishes, because there was one person keeping notes, and the wishes were, let us remain humble dust in the lotus feet of Sri Rupa Raghunath. We have no desire but to serve the mission of the Goswamis, or Chaitanya's mission. Work conjointly. It means cooperatively. So it did fragment, and luckily Prabhupada had been protected, because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta advised Bhakti Saranga Maharaj that you don't have to canvass him, recommend him. It's better he's living outside your company. So as devastating as it was for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta to leave, Srila Prabhupada was fixed in the mission, and he was doing his business. His family was not very cooperative. His own wife, didn't even attend his own initiation. A brother and sister attended, but she didn't. She was simply with the children, stayed home, and enjoyed British tea. And we'll see how that plays out later in the lesson. 1938, Prabhupada gave up his Bombay venture and just moved everybody back to Calcutta and started manufacturing pharmaceuticals at their North Calcutta address. And let's see, it was Harrison Road. Later became Mahatma Gandhi Road. And then because the Gaudiya mission had fragmented, two of Prabhupada's godbrothers from the Mayapur area, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj and Bhakti Saranga Maharaj, they contacted a Baha'i in Calcutta, and they said that they needed a base in Calcutta. Now that the mission was, they were fighting, people were fighting in the courts, who owned the properties and the temples and the assets. So Prabhupada actually, what he did was, he had enough space that he was renting to give them a very nominal rent to some sadhus. And so Prabhupada had their association from the late 1930s into the 1940s. And in 1939, the whole world went to war, World War II, and Prabhupada in that year also started translating Bhagavad Gita. He wrote an introduction to the Gita. And it was very impressive to the sannyasis that were living in his area, so they gave him a title. First, Bhakti Saranga wanted to call him Bhakti Siddhanta, but Sridhar Maharaj said, no, that's a little strange since Guru Maharaj has the same name. Let's call him not Bhakti Siddhanta, let's call him Bhakti Vedanta. Bhaktivedanta Prabhu. The end of knowledge is devotion to Krishna. And so that title came right there around 1940. And then with their blessing in 1944, as the war was still raging, but it was nearing at least some kind of resolution, on the appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Prabhupada, with the blessings of his senior godbrothers, he launches Back to Godhead magazine. And there's the masthead. That wasn't the first issue. You see, it's October 58 there on the screen. February 44, it was just a plain magazine, just print and paper. And there was no masthead. That came later. Prabhupada actually hired somebody to work, with his, it was Prabhupada's design, but the person, somebody did it, actually made it. And that, of course, became the template for our BTG. It continued later. So that was Prabhupada's response to the war, both within his own master's mission and without, as World War II, offering spiritual solutions to material problems in Back to Godhead. So the war ended in 45, and the same year, Prabhupada had another business opportunity in the town called Lucknow, which is in Uttar Pradesh, northern India. And he just needed the help of his crack assistant, that means top assistant, Gauranga Prabhu. But the family in Calcutta wouldn't let Gauranga go. He was too good. They wanted him to help them. So Prabhupada couldn't believe it. What is it, these people? They won't, yes, I want to build the business so I can get capital for my mission, but even they'll have a better life if they just let Gauranga go. I've already left them other people, cooks and cleaners and other servants. So I'm not interested anymore in supporting these people, Prabhupada told Gauranga in a letter. But he did. He sort of soldiered on. And then India got its independence in 47. And let's see here. Yeah. Even before Indian independence, that was in August, in July, Prabhupada wrote Mahatma Gandhi a letter, as you may know. And Prabhupada took the role of an external manifestation of the Super Soul. You may remember from the Bhagavatam, there's a character, Avigyata, who's in the 4th canto, chapter 28. King Puranjan becomes a woman in his next life. And without going into all those details, basically the mysterious Brahman in that chapter is actually the Super Soul, who is in our hearts, but we don't recognize it, we don't hear him, and therefore he remains hidden from us by our own desires. So Prabhupada is assuming a similar role by writing this letter. My dear Mahatmaji, please accept my humble namaskar. I am your unknown friend. In other words, Mahatmaji, you don't know me, but I am your friend. I'm your well-wisher. And he's appealing to Gandhi in the letter to please give up politics. You know, the British are about to leave India. You've got your goal is in sight. Give up politics. And I can, if you just, I can teach you Bhagavad Gita as it is. You say the Gita is your favorite book. Well, I can teach you the Gita, the real Gita, the Gita as it is. And if you don't do this, if you don't distance yourself from politics, it's going to be your undoing. Quote, you shall have to meet with such inglorious deaths as Mussolini, Hitler, Tojo, Churchill, or Lloyd George. I mean, Churchill and Lloyd George, they weren't even dead yet. But Mussolini, Hitler, and Tojo. Yeah. So Prabhupada's predicting. It actually became a prophecy. Prabhupada is saying, I would only request you to retire from politics at least for a month only, and let us have discussion on the Bhagavad Gita. I am sure, therefore, that you shall get a new light from the result of such discussions, not only for your benefit, but for the benefit of the world at large, as I know that you are sincere, honest, and moralist. Awaiting your early reply with interest, yours sincerely, Abhay Charan Day. That was dated 12th July 47. August, the very next month, India got its independence. And then, 6 months later, or 5 months later, Mahatma Gandhi was, in fact, assassinated. So Prabhupada's letter began to read like a prophecy. If you don't give up politics, it's going to be your undoing. A Hindu extremist who thought Gandhi was too soft on Muslims, after Gandhi's, one of his famous prayer meetings, shot him at point-blank range. Gandhi was assassinated. Prabhupada had already approached Gandhi to try to engage him in using Gandhi's name. That was Prabhupada's strategy. I'll use the name of Gandhi to preach Gita as it is. They don't know me, but everyone knows Gandhi. So, but when Gandhi was assassinated, this became a kind of trigger for Prabhupada's, for him to begin to articulate the mission And in an essay around somewhere in 1948, after the assassination, Prabhupada began to give a first name to his mission, and he called it Gita Nagari, which of course is the name of the ISKCON farm in Pennsylvania, where I lived for many years. Gita Nagari, the village where the Bhagavad Gita is sung and lived. So Prabhupada is saying in his presentation of Gita Nagari, which he's presenting to government and business leaders in the wake of Gandhi's assassination, Prabhupada is saying, quote, the Gita Nagari will properly utilize the huge resources of Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Fund in the manner as will satisfy both Gandhi and the public. Gandhi's memory can be well preserved by his exemplary activities and not by simply constructions of huge buildings or dead stone statues, as we see the general tendency. Mahatma Gandhi was a saintly reformer, and his memorial fund may be utilized for the purpose of converting degraded persons into saintly order. Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Fund. Prabhupada wanted leaders to use that money to launch a spiritual revolution, which is what India was really, that was its real gift to the world. So when India's leaders ignored Prabhupada's proposals to fund a spiritual community based on Gandhi's inspirational scripture, Prabhupada revived BTG and began to further articulate his plan to rescue humanity by building spiritual communities based on the Gita's teachings. In the next lesson, we'll take a close look at Prabhupada's strategic plan triggered by the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi. So it's not that Gandhi's assassination, Prabhupada already had the plan formulating in his mind, but the assassination kind of inspired Prabhupada to start going public with it. And he couldn't use Gandhi in life, so he tried to use his name in death to spread the message of spiritual peace, spiritual love, revolution, help the world get back on a spiritual track. Of course, no one was listening. Prabhupada said, I was crying alone in the wilderness. Nobody was about to give me any of their sons to train them to become some ambassador of spiritual peace all over the world. They were just mad after technology and copying the West and material success. So, Prabhupada did revive BTG in 1952, and that same year, that became another landmark year because Prabhupada was still doing business, but kind of in a vanaprastha mode. He wasn't doing it with the same zeal because he, 3 times he had tried to build that business up. 3 times Krishna had dismantled it through either fire or there was a theft or his own family just non-cooperation. So Prabhupada was just dutifully maintaining the family, but in a kind of occasional way. So he was in Jhansi in Uttar Pradesh, and he was teaming up with the doctor for a couple of weeks. The doctor would diagnose his patients, write a prescription, and then right next to him, Abhay Babu would write the prescription and sell the patients his pharmaceuticals. But while he was doing that, while Prabhupada was selling them the pharmaceutical, the doctor next to him noticed that Prabhupada was preaching. He couldn't help but preach to his patients. And so after their time was up, he said to Abhay Babu, I can tell you're a preacher, and I think you should come back to Jhansi sometime and lecture to these Ayurvedic medical students in this local Ayurvedic college here. I think they would really appreciate your message because you're preaching Vedic knowledge, Vedic values, Vedic culture. They're involved in one aspect, to the medical aspect. So Prabhupada did. He went back and he found not a wildly receptive audience, but at least they were curious. It was finally something in 3 dimensions. And so one of the students even connected Prabhupada with somebody who had land and buildings, an estate executor of some place called the Radha Memorial. Some man had built a memorial for his wife, just like the Taj Mahal is a memorial for someone's wife. And so the Radha Memorial was the place, and sure enough, the executor liked Prabhupada. He decided he would let this sadhu use the property and the buildings to preach his mission. He even hinted maybe he'd just give the property to Prabhupada. That didn't happen. So in May 53, Prabhupada formally launched what he called the League of Devotees. League was a popular term. There had been the League of Nations to end all wars, and then now the United Nations had come. There had been a Muslim League. League was a popular phrase. So Prabhupada called the next face, so to speak, he put on his mission was the League of Devotees. First it was the Gita Nagari, then it was the League of Devotees. And here in his prospectus at the launch is what would be a precursor, foreshadowing of the first purpose of ISKCON. Quote, to propagate spiritual knowledge systematically for checking the imbalance of life to the whole race of India and the world over, with a view to educate the people in general in the techniques of spiritual life. Yeah. So this, if you, actually in the very next lesson, the ISKCON branch, we look at the purposes of ISKCON, and this is an obvious source for that first purpose of ISKCON. It's all about education, spiritual education. So then an intrigue happened, as you may remember from reading the Lilamrita. Prabhupada was using that property and the buildings on it, very nice property. But then another group had its eyes on it. And one of the people in the group actually even was among Prabhupada's listeners at the Ayurvedic Medical College, a lady. But she was also part of another group called a Mahila Samita Sangha, which means a ladies' upliftment society, which is still an issue in India. You know, the plight of ladies, abused women, etc. So, and this lady was well connected with the wife of the governor of Uttar Pradesh. The governor, his name is K. Munshi. Last time I was in Bombay, there was a road, K. Munshi Marg. Apparently he was a big guy. And his wife was Leelavati Munshi, and she was heading up this Ladies Upliftment Society. So she put pressure on the estate executor because she heard that the property would be just suitable for a chapter of their Ladies Upliftment Society. So she said, so why don't you sell to us? I know you're letting this sadhu use the buildings and the property, but he doesn't own it. We can purchase, and why not sell to us? And she even wrote Prabhupada a letter too, saying, you're trying to do this, but you're not having much success, and we have a very good cause here. So, Babu, please vacate. And Prabhupada refused. No, this is too important, just as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had said to him years before. Krishna consciousness is the greatest cause. So, the executor was getting, really nervous because the governor's wife was saying, if you don't sell to us, it's going to be very hard for you to renew your business license. The way he was making his money was he had a couple of movie houses, cinema houses in town. That was his income. So she was threatening his income with her politics. So the man, he approached Prabhupada and said, Abhay Babu, if you want to stay here, then you'll have to purchase the place. And he said at an impossibly high price. He knew he could never meet it. So that by default, then the man would just be able to sell to the governor's wife. But Prabhupada, he wasn't about to give this up easily. So what he did was he went back to Calcutta, and he cranked up his pharmaceutical works, and he decided he knew how to make money with pharmaceuticals. He'll raise the money. But while Prabhupada was home, as you may know, a very dramatic incident happened. Prabhupada, he was appealing to his wife, who was still addicted to the British tea. And Prabhupada told us this, quote, "I wanted as much as possible to get her to work with me in spreading Krishna consciousness, to get her help. But she was very determined. She would not help me spread Krishna consciousness. And she was very attached to drinking tea. I was always telling her not to drink tea because I wanted to have a nice Vaishnava family. So although I was repeatedly telling her, this time I finally said, you have to choose between me or tea. Either the tea goes or I go." And there's the line there at the top of the screen. So she replied, "Oh, give up tea drinking or give up my husband? Well, I will have to give up my husband then." Of course, Prabhupada said, she thought I was joking. So here is the next line. While Abai was out, this is the last straw now. So Abai went out, and then while he was out, his wife took his worshipable Bhagavatam to the market and traded it for tea biscuits. So Prabhupada comes home. He can't even imagine what she's done. This is outrageous. At first he felt depressed, but then a wave of absolute resolution passed over him. His family life was finished. As Prabhupada told us, even one of my daughters wasn't married yet. But I was thinking, I have to leave now. God will take care. I tried to arrange a marriage for this girl. The family did not accept it. Now this has happened. This is too much, And it's kind of mysterious, too. Why Radharani Dey, Prabhupada's wife, of all things, took his book, his Bhagavatam, and went to the shop and put it on the scale. And I guess you can get a lot of tea bags for a heavy book. So but why she chose that, we can only surmise that it's just Krishna's arrangement to free Prabhupada, release him from 36 years in that Grihastha ashram, 1918, 1954. So when we were helping Satsrup Maharaj compile the Lilamrita, we found one of Prabhupada's godbrothers, one Paramhansa Maharaj in South Calcutta, who swore that after Prabhupada left his family, he came down to his mutt in South Calcutta and just chanted for 2 weeks at the top of his voice, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, just releasing 36 years of that ashram, just releasing it. Finished. And he never came back, although they thought he would, because he was always coming and going. So what Prabhupada did was, he went back to Jhansi. He hadn't even, raised the funds, but he just went back there to consider what to do, because he wanted to continue the mission, but this was going on, this politics. So he consulted a godbrother, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, who later became his sannyas guru. And he said, Maharaj, will you please come here and survey the scene, maybe bring some of your brahmachari assistants, and give me your opinion. I'm getting legal advice here that I can fight this. That India has its long tradition of giving preference to sadhus. I was here first. So they say I can fight it. So tell me, you come and you see what you think. So Keshav Maharaj did, and after a few days he said, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, you're not in Vanapras mode now to engage in litigation over Jhansi. Guru Maharaj, he liked us to be in big population centers, not in these little out-of-the-way. Jhansi is pretty out of the way. It's not really worth a legal fight. So just drop it. Come to Mathura with me now. Help me with the mutt. And I know Lord Chaitanya has greater plans in store for you. So don't worry. So Prabhupada did that. He had left his family, and then he left Jhansi. And it was not easy. He had very little money. He revived back to Godhead in 56. That was his most productive year. 12 issues in 12 months. And if you've seen the pictures, he was trying to sell them in Delhi at the tea stalls, and nobody was interested. There was one article Prabhupada wrote, "No time, the disease of the modern man. No time." Yeah. So, Prabhupada is trying to help. He has little recourse, but to try to work with his god brothers in their now isolated mutts. And he's telling them also about his dreams he's been having since the 1940s, where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is coming to him, and he's saying, "Please come out, take sannyas, come out with me and preach." And Prabhupada said, "I was horrified because I couldn't imagine living like my austere sannyasi god brothers, Sridhar Maharaj, Bhakti Saranga Maharaj." Prabhupada saw how they lived. They were living very super simply, and he couldn't picture living like that. So Prabhupada said, "I was horrified," although Prabhupada's own family was not even favorable. So they would say, "No, we won't give you sannyas, but why don't you come and help us with our mutts?" So Prabhupada tried. He tried to work with them, but he was too much. His preaching spirit was too much. They were just into maintaining. Prabhupada was always trying to expand, the preaching, and they would always just let him go. "Oh, you are a favored son of Guru Maharaj. Better you preach on your own." It was only until Prabhupada finally again met his trusted godbrother Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, who is pictured there in the center, looking uncannily a bit like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He said, "Yes, Abai Babu, you Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, you must do this. You must take sannyas." So on 17 September 1959, Srila Prabhupada takes sannyas from Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, and there is someone named Muni Maharaj, who's in his 90s actually. He's getting ready to leave the world. Our Prabhupada is getting ready to go into the world, because he's openly saying now, I don't know how, I don't know when, but Guru Maharaj wants us to go to the West. I'm going to do it. So what you're going to hear now in this audio clip is Prabhupada's praise of his sannyas guru. And the praise happened in October 68 when Prabhupada was visiting his fledgling Seattle center. It must have been very small in those days. This is pre-Microsoft Seattle. Although the World Fair had happened that year. Remember the Space Needle? Yeah, the Seattle World's Fair. Remember that? 68 had happened. So Prabhupada has a little center. And while he's there, for some time, for some weeks actually, he must have been doing a lot of translating, he gets word from Mathura that his sannyas guru has left this world, and he takes the opportunity of that event to share the glories of Keshav Maharaj with the devotees. So before Ramananda presses the button, I will tell you that you're going to hear this little excerpt. It's very moving. Prabhupada is very emotional, and he says things that he would not ordinarily say. And I'm wondering if you can spot them, but I will pick out a couple of things. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Here we go.
I was sitting alone in Vrindavan, writing my god brother. He insisted me, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu. Not he insisted me, practically my spiritual master insisted me through him that you accept. Because without accepting this renounced order of life, nobody can become a preacher. So unwillingly I accept.
Whoops. I don't know if you all heard that. Maybe Ramananda finally figured out a way to play the audio for you without an echo, because all I heard was my copy. Ramananda, why don't you come on briefly and confirm that everyone heard it?
Everything is fine, except
Okay.
that you moved a little too close to the mic.
Okay. Okay, so apparently you all heard it. There was no echo, which is great. And I'll put the mic a little away. So you see, Prabhupada is saying
now
that...
you're too far. Now you're too far. Just a moment ago, you were absolutely perfect. Now you're too far.
Okay. So I think I'm okay now. Okay, so Prabhupada, he's already been going around and asking for sannyas. So, but he's saying, unwillingly I accept it. In other words, he wants to glorify Keshav Maharaj. So he's giving all the credit to a sannyas guru and even Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. You know, not he insisted me, practically my spiritual master insisted me through him. So it's a good reminder how when we hear Prabhupada, we always have to know context, because otherwise we get confused by the contradictions. The main intent here is to glorify the sannyas guru. And here's another one. Without accepting the renounced order of life, nobody can become a preacher. Prabhupada never says that. Rather, he quotes Bhakti Vinod, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Whatever, Grihe Thakur, Vani Thakur, whoever you are, whatever order of life you're in, just preach Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So, good example of knowing context as being a key to knowing why Prabhupada is saying what he's saying. So after Prabhupada's sannyas, he hears from two friends. One is an army captain and one is a librarian, and they both say the same thing. What do they say? That, you're doing Back to Godhead. Why don't you write books? People easily throw away magazines. So why don't you write books? The second time Prabhupada heard it, he took it that Bhakti Siddhanta was speaking through him. And he must have also remembered that before Srila Bhakti Siddhanta would send those Gaudiya mission preachers to Europe, he insisted they have a book, that Sri Krishna Chaitanya book by Professor Sanyal. So Prabhupada, he knows he is going to the West, so he knows he must have a book too. So his warm-up book, so to speak, was Easy Journey to Other Planets, which Prabhupada wrote in response to a newspaper item which said that Russian scientists who all the world was watching Russian scientists, because in '57 they had put up Sputnik and spooked, the world. Everybody's thinking Soviet scientists are going to, dominate us now. They're going to conquer us. So the article in the paper was Russian scientists discover antimatter. So Prabhupada wrote a whole little book responding to that, using the concept of antimatter and representing it in terms of the Gita as the non-material particle, the anti-material particle, and the anti-material planetary systems. That was Prabhupada's scientific jargon for the soul and the kingdom of God. And it was well received, because Prabhupada sent it around first, got favorable reviews from scientists, and it became his first little book. And then Prabhupada hit on his magnum opus, his great work of translating and commenting on the Bhagavatam. He started it in Delhi, and then on a trip to Vrindavan for inspiration, Srivatsa Goswami, who's the leader of the Radha Damodar temple, said, "Oh, you're translating the Bhagavatam. Well, why don't you live in Vrindavan? That's the place for inspiration. Just live in Vrindavan, and you can do your business in Delhi when you print." So Prabhupada, and so Srivatsa Goswami said, "I have these rooms here, Radha Damodar temple rooms, and some of them, they're vacant, and they just need a little repair. So if you can raise the rupees, you can just live there for a nominal fee." So Prabhupada took him up on it, raised a few thousand rupees, which is no small feat for a poor sadhu. And was translating. So between 62 and 65, Prabhupada worked on a typewriter that looked very much like this, even before Corona joined with Smith to become Smith Corona. Corona put out this, this is the kind of typewriter I learned on, actually. My father had an old one in his house. And there's no question of touch typing on something like this, because to make the impression of the key on the page manually from an old Corona, you have to really forcibly push your pointer finger from each hand so that it makes an impression on the page. So this is how Prabhupada's working with a very crude Corona typewriter. And both in the preface to his Bhagavatams and in his purport to 1.5.11, famous two verses, how literature which doesn't describe Krishna's glories is a pilgrimage place for crows, even if it's very literary. And then the next verse says, but literature which glorifies Krishna, even if it's not so well written, tadabaddavatyapi, even though imperfectly composed, shrinvanti, gayanti, grinanti, is heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So in the preface to the Bhagavatam, and I think even in that purport, Prabhupada is appealing to the reader to please overlook any literary discrepancies. In other words, he's acknowledging, look, I don't speak the King's English, but don't get hung up on the language. Focus on the spiritual techniques that I'm presenting of how to use the human form to its full potential to graduate from the cycle of birth and death and revive our pure love of God. Quote, our capacity of presenting the matter in adequate language, especially a foreign language, will certainly fail. And there may be so many literary discrepancies, in spite of our honest attempt to present it in the proper way. But we are sure that with our, and here is Prabhupada's Indian English right in the plea, with our all faults in this connection, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration, and the leaders of the society will still accept this on account of its being an honest attempt for glorifying the Almighty Great, so much now badly needed. Yeah. So there's Prabhupada, the original book distributor, so to speak, distributing his newly published Bhagavatams in 65 to the second Prime Minister of India, Lal Bahadur Shastri, who actually was a Shastri. Whereas Nehru, the first Prime Minister, he didn't know Shastra, but Shastri did, and he's very happy to receive the books. And Prabhupada, again, is more than ever openly saying, I'm going to the West. And here is Prabhupada telling us years later on the next slide, you're going to hear another audio. Prabhupada describing his mood in 1965. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 again for Ramananda. I don't know if it's necessary, but here we go with this little excerpt. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go.
I planned that I must go to America. Generally they go to London. I did not go to London. I was simply dreaming how to go to New York. I was dreaming whether I shall go this way through Tokyo, Japan, or that way, which way is cheaper. And I was targeting to New York. Always. Sometimes I was dreaming that I come to New York.
So Prabhupada is very up to date, whereas the Gaudiya mission, they had been focused on Europe and London. Prabhupada knew from his BTG writing that the action was in New York. So that's what he was thinking. Good example of how to follow the order of the Guru, we have to keep up with the times. That's really following and not simply imitating what was done in the past, but to update it, as Prabhupada did. So, Prabhupada is announcing he's going to the West, but he doesn't know how he's going to get there. And so one man in 65, after the books have been published, says, "Oh, I have a son in Pennsylvania, he'll sponsor you." So Prabhupada didn't take it too seriously. He'd heard this before, nothing ever happened. And lo and behold, the papers come through. So Prabhupada, just intent as an arrow, he starts gathering his documents, his passport, his visa. Of course, he had to have a way to get there. So he'd already met Sumati Morarji, the director, the CEO of Scindia Steamship Lines. When he was doing business in Bombay, he had already befriended her years earlier. She was a Vallabha, Pushti Margi, following Vallabhacharya, Vaishnavi. But she didn't want to send him because she and all her secretaries felt that Swamiji would surely die on the ship because he's elderly and it's a very rough passage. And she was almost right. Prabhupada did have a couple of heart attacks. But finally Prabhupada just convinced her that Krishna had a mission and he was Krishna's man, so she reluctantly gave him round-trip passage. And there was one last bureaucrat that almost scuttled the whole thing. There was something called a P form in India where you have to get funds released, you have to get a paper saying that you've paid all your taxes and you have no outstanding debts. And so the man said, "Swamiji, I cannot pass your case. You only have private sponsorship here. You're very elderly. Anything could happen to you. You need institutional sponsorship." So Prabhupada said, "No, this is not right. Give this to your superior." And so, sure enough, by the end of the day, the superior came out of his little office waving Prabhupada's papers and said, "Don't worry, Swamiji, I have passed your case." So on the 13th of August, Friday the 13th, the luckiest day in the history of the world, Prabhupada did set sail on the Jaladuta for America. And now we are going to hear it's several slides with audio, so I'll just take my headphones off after I click it at my end. But Ramananda, you can get ready now, because as soon as I go to the next slide, it should automatically kick in. And this is this beautiful song written by our God sister describing Prabhupada's passage to America on the Jaladuta. Okay, 1, 2, 3, here we go.
Prabhupada boarded the Jaladuta today. He's heading to the west without delay. His books are in their trunks just like gold. He carries a message true and bold. His teacher wanted Prabhupada to go to the places where people did not know that the God we all pray to is the same, and Krishna is his original name. Blow winds on the water, oh Atlantic, please bring him here so his message of service can spring anew, pleasing as the morning dew. The absolute is sentient, as proven long ago. Life comes from life, it has always been so. Impersonal deception is the only veil puts a soul on calamity's trail. Blow winds on the water, oh Atlantic, please bring him here. Then the clouds that carry illusions blight will scatter from his words of light. Prabhupada boarded the Jaladuta today. His heart attack will come along the way. But Krishna will know just what to do, becoming a special rowing crew. Row, row, all the incarnations, bestow your mercy. Please be kind, let him land here safely. Let freedom ring, let my heart have a song to sing. Prabhupada can see Boston Harbor now. Oh, Atlantic, I see him on the bow.
Hey, Jamini. Do song, and that's the way we end the lesson. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to identify the seeding and sprouting of Prabhupada's mission's creeper, recount 3 major blessings Prabhupada received from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in 1935, recount early manifestations of Prabhupada's mission in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, and finally describe Prabhupada's sea voyage to the West. Of course, the song didn't really describe it in detail. Prabhupada had his heart attacks in the Red Sea, and he wrote later in his diary, if that another came, he thought he surely wouldn't survive. Krishna saved that third one for later in 67 when Prabhupada had his, what he called his heart stroke. When the ship emerged onto the Atlantic, the captain couldn't believe it. He and his wife had never seen the Atlantic with such a calm face. It was like a big lake. So they said, "Oh, Swamiji, you must come back with us. We've never seen the Atlantic like this." They were sure it was because the sadhu was on board. Okay. Now next week I am going away on Thursday morning. I guess I can do one more Wednesday before we take it, because I'll be gone for about a week. Let's see. Do the next. Yeah. Next starts with that video, Teaching Krishna Consciousness in America. Okay. Let's leave it there. It's pretty late, Ramananda, but if anybody has any question or comment.
Okay. Does anyone have anything they would like to add?
I was going to ask a question, but I looked it up on the computer. I was curious how old Prabhupada was when he met Bhaktisiddhanta.
Well, it was 1922. 22. So
he was 26.
26 by Indian reckoning, because in India they reckon 1 starts when you're born. Although by our reckoning, Prabhupada didn't turn 26 until September. I think that meeting was over the summer. Anyway, 25, 26. Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's about the age a lot of us took initiation or joined, got serious about us when we came in contact with Prabhupada. It's pretty much around the same time, yeah?
Early mid-20s. Right. In fact, a reporter once asked Prabhupada why that was so. All your followers are so young. And Prabhupada said, well, that's the time for education. It's harder to, well, I didn't say it at the time, but it's harder to teach an old dog new tricks. So, I think Prabhupada even, in fact, I'm pretty sure it was right here in Gainesville, Florida, where the journalist said that, why are your followers so young? And Prabhupada said, well, why are most of the students at the university young? That's generally the time for education. So, that's when Prabhupada came.
Not only was our timing perfect on a universal scale, that we were on the planet, just when Krishna had come, and just when Lord Chaitanya had come, and just when Srila Prabhupada had come, and at just the perfect time of our life, at the right age. I mean, God, we look at things, Krishna lining everything up. Boy, would we be foolish not to really take advantage. I think the thoughts probably crossed all of our minds. Gosh, at this age of life, many of us now in our 60s, well into the 60s, would we have taken to it at this age? Personally, I doubt it. For myself.
Yeah, it's hard. You get set in your ways, Okay. Any questions or doubts or anything about the facts that I presented?
Well, just one thought on Nahari's statement is we should think, what would we have to be told in order to want to join now? Because as preachers, we have to talk to people that are our age and other ages and think what would be something that would have us attracted.
Yeah, that's true. That's a real preacher's way to take that remark. That it's better late than never, and how to reach those people. Right, everybody is eligible.
A lot of people in that age, I find it's good preaching to older people if they're a little bit interested, because a lot of they had their life pretty much, and they're looking back and geez, it wasn't so great. But it was a lot harder when you're younger, when you're just not convinced. You can't enjoy. And also in old age, death is coming. It's much more of a reality, which is a healthy thing. If someone can somehow perceive that, hey, this is coming to an end, maybe I better seriously ask some questions. Where am I going from here? The show's almost over.
Yeah, and because we are older, we actually are in a position to reach those people because we have experience too, and we can empathize and we can see things through their eyes.
Well, Hare Krishna, this is Mahesh. Well, but the thing is that we do quite a bit of preaching here where we are. The problem with trying to reach older people is that older people don't think that they are going to die. It's like what Yudhishthira Maharaj said in the Mahabharata. Nobody's sure that death is going to come to them. So actually, it's pretty hard to preach to old people. They are set on their own ways.
Yeah, I want to ask
you. Maharaj, hi, Jai Jagadish?
Pushkar.
Pushkar, okay.
About when Prabhupada went to Radha Damodar and they offered him the room, the fellow you mentioned was, I always thought there was someone named Gaurachandra Goswami that was in charge there, but
I'll have to look back at that. I thought it was Srivatsa.
Srivatsa is a guy. Srivatsa is from maybe another Srivatsa, but the one that we hear about who's younger actually is Radharaman Temple fellow. He was going. But, his pictures are probably talking to that Gaurachandra. He had like 5 sons that are all now kind of embedded in the Radha Damodar, and, they're not very advanced apparently, but they have some pretty bad habits. But, I thought it was Gaurachandra.
All right. It's probably just a simple look it up in the Lilamrita. I think it's in there. Okay, yeah, thanks for that.
Oh, I thought you had investigated everything threadbare, and I thought I could, for one time, be wrong, but it seems like no, I'm always right. Oh my God.
No, you. I might have goofed there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just lying back, thinking that you've done all the research, and now you're putting everything on me. I have to figure everything out, find all the faults, start from scratch, and really beat you down.
No, come on, I make mistakes all the time. Even if I've done the research, I might forget it. I might, say something else.
Isn't that one of the four defects?
No, there's no more defects now, Hari.
There's 4.
We got rid of the defects. No, we got rid of all of them. Defects is old news. A retro. You're a retro, man.
All right.
Defects are totally. I mean, weren't you there when we got rid of all the defects?
We have a process. So you just have to keep taking the medicine. They will go away in time. Right now, I've still got it.
Okay, Ramananda, it's a little late. Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, so you are going to do next week. Very important. I need to run a tight ship here.
You always get teary-eyed when you get to the part of singing the song and Prabhupada walking on the gangplank. It's always, I don't know if it does everybody else. It sure makes me emotional.
Yeah.
Prabhupada you think about Prabhupada getting on this, walking this gangplank on the ship, just off to a totally foreign place.
Yeah.
Not knowing what Krishna has in store.
Sorry, remember the story that's in the Lilamrita of someone named Shishir Bhattacharya who claimed to be there. And wasn't that disproven? Like his son said, no, that guy was never there. What's he? It's like the guy just concocted this whole story, right?
Wow.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, that's true. It was such a good story, and usually Satsuma Maharaj, he would insist that these stories would be corroborated from many angles. I don't think we had any other corroboration, but it was such a good ending. He just used it, and then later on, I think it was Vrindavan Day who talked about this person was there, and I think he was there too. I mean, there were family members there.
If you don't mind sharing, what was that? What was
that the way the Lilamrita ends, we have this guy in Calcutta saying that he was the only one who accompanied Prabhupada to the ship, and he wasn't even close to him. He just was an acquaintance. I think Prabhupada was staying with him or something in Calcutta.
He was a professional bhajan man. His name was Shishir Bhattacharya, if I recall, and he was a very dramatic type of presentation. But I almost think that Vrindavan Day said, no, that guy wasn't even there. I mean, if he was, Vrindavan Day was there as well,
And there were other people there too.
Yeah.
I mean, not to minimize, what Prabhupada did, but it wasn't quite the way it was painted at the end of the Lilamrita.
Yeah.
No, how would that minimize what Prabhupada did? I don't get it.
No. Yeah.
Anyway, that guy was there.
Yeah, that's a shame because that's a great story. That was one of my favorites. I get really emotional when I hear it.
No, but I always thought it's kind of weird. Why would no one be there? It just didn't make sense. I mean, someone from Gaudiya Math, someone from his family. I mean, it just doesn't. He's going away on a boat. No one did that. Who did that? Nobody.
And Prabhupada even alerted the press. I mean, it was an event.
So Shishir Bhattacharya, that he had just met 1 or 2 times, some professional bhajan guy who played harmonium, was going to be the only one there. It just didn't ring right to me. But
Okay, so there's a bunch of things like that. I mean, the good news is that even in terms of Srila Rupa Goswami's, Natika Shastra, the drama Shastra?
Yeah.
Natya Shastra, I forget it. That this came out when Tamal Krishna Maharaj published his Jagannath Priya Natakam. That I forget who was writing about it in the front matter, but they were talking about a little dramatic license that Goswami had taken with the story of Lord Jagannath to make it flow. And somebody in the front matter said that according to Rupa Goswami, if the philosophy is intact and the rasa is intact, then history is secondary. The details of the history is not as important as the philosophy being intact and the relationships being intact. So there is some license for that, apparently, even in Rupa Goswami's presentation. Okay. Ramananda, I have to confirm that with you that I can actually, because it's going to be the day before I leave for a week, and I'm not sure yet. I guess I'll have to let you know.
Give us as much advance notice as you can so we can have somebody prepared to give a Bhagavatam class.
Right.
Give us at least 3 or 4 days notice.
All right.
Narhari's going to have a support group for that, you know. Like
I thought you were the support group.
Post-traumatic Sureshwar seminar trauma.
Well, but at least he'll be coming back. That's going to be my in another week we'll be back.
Thank you, Sureshwar Prabhu.
All right. Thank you. I hope
we'll see you next week.
Well, next week I'll be away. Actually, I'll be. I mean, I see what you mean. Yeah, next week. But the week after that, I'll be in North Carolina.
So you're going to miss some time anyway, even if it's 2 weeks from now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
All right. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.